Chapter 18. The Visit of Three Angels. One day, as Abraham sat at the door of his tent, he saw three men standing nearby. He ran to meet them, bowed before them, and invited them to rest and eat. These men were actually angels, sent by God. One of them told Abraham that Sarah would have a son within a year. Sarah overheard and laughed because she was so old. But God asked Abraham, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18:14. Then God revealed that he was going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah because of their great wickedness. Abraham, knowing that his nephew Lot lived in Sodom, asked God if he would spare the city if there were 50 righteous people there. And the Lord said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes." Genesis 18:26. And Abraham continued to ask if God would spare the city for fewer and fewer righteous people. In the end, God agreed to spare the city if he found 10 righteous people there. Chapter 19. The Destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The two angels arrived in Sodom and visited Lot's house. The men of the city surrounded the house, demanding that Lot send out the visitors. Lot refused, offering his daughters instead, but the men became angry. The angels struck the men with blindness and warned Lot to gather his family and flee the city because God was about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels led Lot, his wife, and his two daughters out of the city, telling them not to look back. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. God rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah, destroying the cities. Lot and his daughters fled to a small town called Zoar, where they were safe. Chapter 20. Abraham and Abimelech. Abraham and Sarah traveled to the land of Gerar, where Abraham told King Abimelech that Sarah was his sister, because he was afraid that the king would kill him to take Sarah as his wife. But God appeared to Abimelech in a dream and warned him not to touch Sarah. Abimelech returned Sarah to Abraham and gave him gifts as a sign of peace. And God said unto him in a dream, "Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her." Genesis 20:6. Abraham prayed for Abimelech, and God healed him, his wife, and his servants so that they could have children again. Chapter 21. The birth of Isaac and the expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael. God's promise came true, and Sarah gave birth to a son, Isaac, when she was 90 years old. Abraham was 100 years old. They celebrated the birth with a great feast. And Sarah said, "God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me." Genesis 21:6. However, when Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar, mocking Isaac, she asked Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away. God assured Abraham that it would be okay, and that Ishmael would also become the father of a great nation. So Abraham gave Hagar some bread and water, and sent her and Ishmael into the wilderness. When their water ran out, Hagar wept, but God spoke to her and promised to make Ishmael the father of a great nation. God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, which saved them. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, "What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is." Genesis 21:17. Chapter 22. Abraham tested. God tested Abraham's faith by telling him to take Isaac, his promised son, to the mountain and offer him as a sacrifice. Abraham obeyed God and took Isaac to the mountain. As Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac, an angel of the Lord stopped him, saying, "Do not harm the boy." Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horns, and he sacrificed the ram instead of Isaac. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here am I." Genesis 22:11. God promised Abraham that because of his obedience, his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and all nations would be blessed through him. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. Genesis 22:18. Chapter 22. Sarah lived to be 127 years old. She died in Hebron, and Abraham mourned her. He bought a cave in Machpelah from the Hittites to bury her. This cave became the family tomb for Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Genesis 23:2. Chapter 24. The marriage of Isaac and Rebekah. Abraham, now very old, sent his servant to his homeland to find a wife for Isaac. The servant prayed to God for guidance, and when he reached the city, he met Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, and asked her for water. She offered him water and also gave water to his camels, showing her kindness. The servant knew that she was the one that God had chosen for Isaac. Rebekah agreed to go with the servant and marry Isaac. Isaac loved Rebekah, and they were married. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Genesis 24:67. Chapter 25. The death of Abraham and the birth of Esau and Jacob. Abraham lived 175 years before he died, and was buried beside Sarah. God blessed Isaac, and Isaac's wife Rebekah gave birth to twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau was born first, and Jacob followed, holding Esau's heel. And the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Genesis 25:25. Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. This chapter sets the stage for the rivalry between the two brothers. Chapter 26. Isaac and Abimelech. Isaac lived in Gerar, and once again he told King Abimelech that his wife Rebekah was his sister, because he feared for his life. When Abimelech discovered the truth, he rebuked Isaac for his lie. Isaac then prospered in the land, and God blessed him. And Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. Genesis 26:12. Chapter 27. Jacob steals from Esau's blessing. As Isaac grew old and blind, he called his son Esau to give him his blessing before he died. Rebekah, overhearing this, told her son Jacob to deceive Isaac and receive the blessing instead. She cooked a meal like Isaac's favorite and dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes, covering his hands and neck with goat skins to make him feel like Esau. Jacob tricked his father into giving him Esau's blessing. When Esau came in later, he found that Jacob had already received the blessing. Esau was very upset, but Isaac told him that the blessing would stay with Jacob. And Isaac said, "Thy brother came with subtlety and has taken away thy blessing." Genesis 27:35. Esau vowed to kill Jacob after their father died, so Jacob fled to his uncle Laban's house in Haran. Chapter 28. Jacob's dream at Bethel. On his way to Haran, Jacob stopped to rest for the night and used a stone as a pillow. While he slept, he had a dream of a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending on it. God spoke to Jacob in the dream, reaffirming the promises made to Abraham and Isaac, that his descendants would inherit the land and be a blessing to all nations. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, "I am the Lord God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land where you liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed." Genesis 28:13. Jacob woke up and realized that he had been in a holy place. He set up the stone he had used as a pillow, as a pillar, and named the place Bethel, which means house of God. And Jacob called the name of the place Bethel, but the name of that city was called Luz at the first. Genesis 28:19. Chapter 29. Jacob meets Rachel. Jacob arrived at the well in Haran, where he met Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban. Jacob was immediately in love with her and agreed to work for 7 years to marry her. However, Laban tricked Jacob into marrying Leah, Rachel's older sister, instead. Jacob was upset, but agreed to work another 7 years to marry Rachel as well. Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, and this caused tension in their family. God saw that Leah was unloved and blessed her with children, while Rachel remained barren for a time. And God opened her womb, and she conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. Genesis 29:32. Leah had 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, while Rachel struggled with jealousy. Eventually, Rachel had a son of her own, whom she named Joseph. Be sure to check out our next video, where we learn more about Joseph and how Jacob's prosperity grows in Genesis chapter 30. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when new videos are uploaded. Have a blessed day.